So, podcast, huh?
Podcast. What is that?
What is... No, actually, what does podcast mean?
I don't know. It's a cast that's encapsulated within a pod.
Welcome to Youth Australia.
We're too tired to do this.
Oh, no.
All right, I think we leave it at that, shall we?
There we go. See you guys later. That's the podcast for this week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to this week's Youth Australia podcast. Hi everyone and Merry Christmas. This is Courier here. Yep, this is Courier, and I hope everyone had a wonderful and safe Christmas. This year is tough for everyone, and we wish it will get over soon. So yeah, here are this week's Youth Australia news. First up, the Minecraft server is back up and running after an issue earlier this week. So jump back on and continue to enjoy the Minecraft server and make new friends. We also have a new game mode coming early next year, so definitely we'll be looking forward to that. Details will be in the Minecraft announcement channel on our Discord. Secondly, I just want to mention the Scribbler event we had last week. It was so good to see you guys participate in the event and seeing the talent arts by you guys. Yeah, it was remarkable and fun event. And we'll be looking forward to more Youth Australia events in the future. And finally, look out for daily Bible reading at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It's a great time and I would love to see more people jumping on as we go through God's Word. And yeah, that's all for this week's news. Merry Christmas and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Oh, no, we have an actual somewhat of a plan for this week's one. Yeah.
We had no idea how to start it, so here we are.
Here we go. Basically, we're a Christian podcast. Didn't know already. Sorry if you've been following us this long and thought this was a Minecraft podcast.
Although we do have,
We do have a Minecraft server, though.
Yeah, we do.
Which you should join. Link in the description.
It's very fun to play on. Try and beat my Vortex jump high score. I dare you.
100%. So, we are a Christian podcast. And one of the reasons why you guys started Youth Australia was during this whole time of COVID craziness to provide a point of connection for kids who might not be comfortable with church or with youth groups or that whole environment. However, now that COVID, at least here in Australia, is pretty much a non-issue at this point.
It's restrictions eased, yeah.
Restrictions have eased. And we can start going back to church. We can actually sing now with masks in church, which is awesome.
Muffled singing.
Muffled singing. I was super keen for that. But so now we just sort of wanted to talk about church and about what our experiences with it have been and why we go to church, why we think church is important, and maybe even why it's a good idea to go to church even if you're not sure what you believe in. Yeah.
All right, who wants to start us off?
I
will.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Everyone gave me a look then. I was like, all right, here we are.
My brain's still got to
All right,
process
so
this.
I'll start with me going to church. So I've been raised in a Christian family, so I've been going to church since I was little. And I think the most important thing to remember is when you're going to church, going to your family's church is great and all, but finding your own church is that much better. Like finding that place where you actually kind of fit in, you go, oh, this is where I feel like this is the church I should be at. And I found that last year when I went to a certain church, which I don't know if I'll name, so I won't. I went there and I went, oh, this church is amazing. This is exactly what I love. And I've been going there ever since, and I still go there. And that's how I've met quite a few people. Ethan from the podcast, met him there for the first time last year. Some of the people from... Some of the staff on Youth Australia come from this church. Such a good place. And I think that's always important to remember is you go to church for God, but you will also meet people there that you can be lifelong friends with. So keen to hang out with these guys more. And we've got some others coming to church now. Joel goes to this church at night, or has been going to this church.
When I can.
When he can, yeah. He lives a bit away.
A long way away.
But yeah, it's been great. And I'm sure you can agree that you've met so many people through it.
Yeah.
It's been great, yeah.
I think, I don't know, there's a few reasons to go to church. Obviously, from the Christian side of things, there's just a place to worship God and to get teaching about Christianity. You know, it's always good to hear different perspectives on things. And, you know, one of the things about Christianity is that as much as we really like to simplify it, it's actually a little bit complex.
A little bit.
Which is honestly, I was reading Mere Christianity, which is C.S. Lewis's fantastic series of essays on Christianity the other day. I highly recommend for anyone who's listening to this podcast and is looking for like something to read. It's absolutely incredible. Reading it the other day, but he uses like the complexity of Christianity as one of the one of his fundamental sort of proofs of Christianity as, you know, the truth, in that human religion's always inherently simple in a way. They can get complex, but they're often simpler than what we see with Christianity. There's an unpredictability to Christianity that you often don't see elsewhere. But anyway, so that's worship God. It's a great thing. Teachings, another great thing. The other thing is social connection.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's like church is still somewhat of a community hub. Especially like I live in a small community, and the church there, like you just know so many people who go there, and yeah, we know everyone is at church, and it's like it's a real point of community connection, and a lot of things happen there. And then the other thing is that churches are often a real force for social good. As much as I feel like these days there's a lot of focus on some of the mistakes of the church, and God bless them, there's been quite a few mistakes over the years.
Sure.
But the fact is that churches are still responsible for much of the aged care, for especially I'm thinking Australia in particular, aged care, homeless care, even education. So much of that is provided through churches, and so it really is an institution for good in that sense. Trying to think, what else is there?
I think it's also a good place to kind of learn different perspectives.
Yeah.
Like, church has been going around for quite a few years now, I think.
Just a bit.
And every time you go, there's always a different thing being preached.
Yeah.
And it's one book they're getting, right? And finding all these different messages. I think that's crazy, the amount that's packed. That it pretty much opens up your mind to the Bible and how big of a book it is. Because there's so much you can take away from it in different perspectives. And I just love that. Because you can go to church and you go, oh, you know what? I've never thought about that before. Recently, I've been bringing a journal to church to write in. So I can kind of remember and go, oh, I remember that. He brought up this point from this verse, which I would never have taken it that way. But it still fits in with kind of what the verse was explaining. It's great that way.
I'm trying to think, because like I feel like there are quite a few Christians today who sort of take the view of, oh, church isn't important, it's my relationship with God that matters. Like I don't know, I see sort of both sides of that. On the one hand, like obviously it's very possible to have a fulfilling Christian life without church, but I think the enrichment of being around like-minded people and, you know, having that time of worship and learning is just so beneficial as well.
I was going to say, for those out there who are thinking of like changing churches or who are looking at going to a church, like church is so much more than just a building. It's a very easy thing to just put in the back of your mind that church is just a place that you go to every week. Church is so much more than a building. Church is a community. Church is a family. Church is a gathering of people that love each other and love God. And it, like you're saying, like it is really good to be around like-minded people in that sense, because it really does help build you up. Because it really, going off on a bit of a tangent, but like if you really do reflect and change yourself on the inside with those that you hang around on the outside.
Yeah.
And so going to a church and going to a loving community and a loving family that loves you back really does help support you and build you up. And that really is like one hell of a good reason to go to church.
I think especially if you're new as a Christian, it's not something that you should neglect. You know? Like, I mean, for myself and for my family, there have been times where there's been a long time between church attendance because of where we live, because of certain things that have happened between us with church. And that's, you know, sort of is what it is. But I know that my relationship with God has struggled during those times. And I just think for someone who's, you know, who's a young Christian, who's new into this, it's probably something that's really good to do, you know. And the other thing is there's so much choice, you know, like so many different churches that sing different music and, you know, do different things. It's like, yeah. So there's, you know, there's a lot of different options if one church maybe isn't quite your style, you know.
That's it.
Yeah.
As I was saying before, I went to a church for about a year and a bit, and it was a good church, don't get me wrong. But then I started coming to the church I go to now, and I was like, oh wow, I just feel like I fit in a bit better here.
Yeah.
In the ways of how they preach, how they worship. It's all a bit more fast paced, and it's so good.
Yeah.
And so we have a night church with our church. So we have morning and then night service.
Yep.
And that night service is more of like a young adult kind of feel to it. And so you feel a bit more in your age group as well, which you find less and less going to just the morning church.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I've always gone to, well, not always, but most of the time go to fairly traditional churches, and I'm usually the youngest there by about 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that can be a bit challenging. But there are lots of churches with vibrant youth communities and things, you know. If you're in the Newcastle area, Courier Life, it's great. And then there's lots of other churches that have a very youth focus. And
Yeah. I feel like it's good to look for a church that you feel welcomed and loved in. It's good to look for a church that, you know, you feel God has called you to or led you to. I think it's probably not a good idea to hop around every church all the time. Like, it's good to plant yourself in a church. But in saying that, like, it's good to search for a church and look for a church to plant yourself into.
yeah.
I think thinking about that is, as Joel said earlier, the church isn't the building. It's
the
people.
community.
It's the community, the people.
Yeah.
And so jumping around from community to community is not going to fulfill you with what you need from a church.
That's definitely right.
I found a quote ages ago, not the one I was talking about earlier, a different one.
Okay.
It was, don't leave the church for its belief. Oh, let me try and get it right. It was many years ago. It was like, don't leave the church because it's dying off or something like that, in those words, or like kind of going downhill. Change the church because it's not a building, it's a community.
Yeah.
I don't know how to word that properly,
that's
but yeah,
brilliant.
it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And that's a good way of saying, oh yeah, maybe don't jump around churches just because it's sinking a little bit. Rise it up a bit
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, that community aspect is important. I think the other thing that we should just quickly say as well is that the church is not infallible. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are possibly quite familiar with certain failings of the church, especially recently, that have been sort of quite public. The thing is that Christians sin, and that's very sad, but they do. And that doesn't mean that they're not Christian. We actually had an amazing encouragement on Discord from one of our community members, and he had this amazing line, which was, "Jesus died for the sins he knew Christians would commit." I was like, that's
Wow.
quite powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoever that is, shout out to you, mate.
It was
That's so
fantastic. If you want to look at it, go to Discord and an encouragements channel. And I think it's the latest one.
I must start with that
And
one
it
later.
is
yeah.
brilliant. It is very good. So that's the thing. Look, it's not always perfect. It's still a group of people, still a group of humans. But ultimately, it should be a group of humans that are pursuing God and pursuing that purpose and
Definitely.
direction. And hopefully, where that purpose is, good things come out of that.
I think we also need to talk about how a quote I said, it's not the quote I was going to mention. I'll mention that one now.
So many quotes.
Once again, I found this years ago and I'll never find it again because I've looked.
Yeah.
It was, the church isn't a club for Christians, it's a hospital for sinners. And it pretty much means don't expect to roll up to church and be like, oh, I'm the only one here that's broken and I shouldn't be here because I don't fit in. You'll probably find that you do fit in quite well
Yeah.
and that everyone else needs the church as much as you do to get by.
Yeah.
And then also, even if you're not Christian, going to church isn't therefore a bad thing. You can go to church and find out what it's about. Like, you may not believe it, fair enough, but then you've got that experience. Don't put it off because you're like, oh, I'm not welcome there at all. You very much are.
That's actually something I'd say probably to a lot of people as well, whether they're people who are complete unbelievers. There's something about meeting with people who share a different belief to you that humanizes them in a way that if you just only ever dealing with them online or dealing with them through their opinions, that you don't get. But if you
100%.
actually spend time with people, it's very different. So that's what I encourage, if you're like, what is this Christian thing?
Yeah. Like, don't get us wrong, though. There's some very vocal Christians out there.
Yes.
And you're kind of like, oh, I never want to associate with them.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough, neither do we.
Neither do
But going to a church, you kind of go, oh, wow, they're human beings.
Yeah.
They have the same interests as me. They're not telling me off for every little thing I did because it's unchristian.
And then on the other side of things, if you'd call yourself more of an agnostic or someone who believes in whether it's a higher power, let's say, believes in a higher power, for the other reasons that we mentioned, from the social perspective and for the and also for the social, I guess, justice perspective that the church has, it's a cool thing to be involved with. And who knows, maybe you might even find some answers that you're looking for in your search. That's the thing that I really believe about God, is that he will find us. There's this great quote once that is like, every other religion is man reaching up to God. Christianity is God reaching down to man.
So good.
And I'm like, that's quite profound to me.
Yeah, it is.
It definitely is.
And that's the sort of thing that I'd encourage anyone, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh wow, what's this? Like, you can search, and God will find you. There's Christians can say what they want about God. They can try and tell you about God. Ultimately, God can tell you about himself. He's a real living, breathing fella. And
He's a real one.
he really is a real one.
Hey.
And that's awesome. I mean, there's we were talking about C.S. Lewis earlier, and reading his sort of process up to his conversion to Christianity, because he was a vocal atheist.
For sure.
And then his thing was just searching. props to him. He had a desire to find what was the truth about the world, and he talks about this great line. There I was on that night, on my knees, the most reluctant convert in all of England. And I love that phrase because it's like, yeah, you can almost, God will take you where you are, even if where you are is just like, I hate the fact that this is real, but I'm gonna have to believe it.
Yeah.
Like God will take you at that point.
For those who don't know, C.S. Lewis is the bloke that wrote the Narnia books.
Wrote the Narnia books.
That's probably what he's pretty much well known for.
I didn't even know that.
he wrote Narnia.
Really?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, they are.
Wrote Narnia, wrote
Wow.
a trilogy of science fiction books, and he wrote some amazing Christian essays.
Yeah.
And he also wrote a really good book called The Screwtape Letters, which is great. Lots of good works. Read C.S. Lewis if you're into reading. Would highly recommend.
Just start with Narnia and you'd be like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yeah. I was actually talking with like one of my mentors, a great bloke, and we were just talking about like some of the like Christian stuff in Narnia, and he was like, oh wow, I have to go and reread these books again. Like, oh.
Yeah. You don't really pick up on it at first and you're like, oh yeah, Christian movie. Because it's a movie as well. Let me
It's
just put
movie
that
as
down.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would
But when you're
recommend
watching the
books.
movie, you don't really click that Christianity with it straight away.
Yeah.
Until you kind of look into it and you go, oh wow, you know what? That's such an easy quote that they got there.
I've actually always thought like it's very easy to look at Narnia with like Christian eyes, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like just to see like the resemblance and the imagery and stuff like that. It's very I thought I was the only one that noticed that or saw that.
It's no, that's the author's intent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because like the whole point of the Narnia books I find was to kind of show the Bible in a way that's not how it is portrayed.
Yeah.
So, spoilers, we're talking about Aslan the lion in Narnia, and that he's portraying Jesus in this righteous lion,
Yeah.
but conveying Jesus in this way where you wouldn't normally think of it as that kind of direction.
I love the quote. Aslan is not a tame lion.
It's so good.
And that's, that reflects.
We could do a whole podcast on
we
C.S.
should.
Lewis.
Oh,
Just
we
thinking
should. We should.
You continue. I'll write that down quick. So I don't forget.
But that not a tame lion thing reflects sort of what C.S. Lewis thought about Jesus, in that he was honestly fairly critical of the church at the time, that was sort of oftentimes kind of watering things down for people. And so that whole thing was like,
That was me.
it's like, yeah, Jesus or Aslan is not a tame lion, kind, true, righteous, but not tame, not a God that you can fit in your little box of how, and I think, going back to like, we should work this back to church.
Yes,
I don't know.
sorry. We got a little bit
We got a
off
little
there,
bit
but
I do have something to say at the end if you want.
But I was, that's maybe one of the best reasons to go to church, is to get different perspectives on God. Because so often we have our little idea of God in our heads, and he fits nicely into our little box where we put him. But that's not God.
that ain't him.
That's not God. God is bigger than we can ever think or imagine.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you're talking about a being that is outside of time, outside of space, outside of everything we understand about the reality of how our world works. You remove all that and then give this being power over our dimension to the point where he created it, and then look at God and go, he actually chose from his position of otherness to actually enter into our world. Like
It's pretty crazy.
it's pretty crazy.
Oh, I want to say other things that just goes on off this wild tangent that we could do so many different episodes
man.
on. But only you would be able to like make a tangent and talk about Narnia and then somehow link that back to church.
That was impressive, actually. I was very impressed.
That was good.
Oh dear.
But actually, I've got some ideas for some later episodes. So I'll talk to you gents afterwards.
Yes.
But
More coming soon, guys.
coming
Let's
soon.
go.
But I did want to quickly say as well, if you like were interested in this podcast or like thinking about looking for a church, now would be a great time because Christmas is coming up, and so almost every single church there is would be doing some sort of Christmas service,
Yes.
either on Christmas Eve or on Christmas Day. Maybe not, but
A few do.
yeah, some do. But yeah, it's definitely a great time to, not that no other time is a good time, but it definitely is a good time to search for a church and have a look around, because there's definitely like, it's not going to be just Christians there. There are all sorts of different people, all sorts of different cultures and religions and backgrounds that all come together.
For Christmas.
Yeah, for Christmas.
Definitely. And also, one of the things that's been really good over COVID is that every church is doing an online service now.
That's true.
So you can get an idea of...
So you can check out church without even leaving your home.
Exactly.
How good is that?
Church in pajamas.
Church
That's
in
the dream.
pajamas.
When they do communion and you have your cereal there, like, get in there.
Or a bottle of wine.
Okay, Riley.
I found a meme literally before we started filming today, and it was church is just a giant book club, and in a way it kind of is, but also kind of isn't.
Dear.
In the ways of, yes, we talk about the Bible a lot, and from that you can go, oh, I didn't take that from when I read it, and when I saw that I was like, oh, I can bring that up now. It's relevant.
Yeah.
So with the Bible, you kind of read and you go, oh yeah, I took this away. Someone comes up to church, I took it this way, and you go, oh, I didn't think about it like that. That's such a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
good memes.
Good memes. Yeah. Church.
Church.
Would recommend.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 would
10 out of 10,
recommend.
highly recommend.
Highly recommend. Yeah. No, but, you know, I don't know. I feel like church has become almost an optional thing. Even for some Christians, it's kind of like, do I really have to go to church?
It's changed a lot with culture.
Yeah.
Because like I really wish I knew more history, but back like with the Protestants and stuff, when like the country, like the UK or whatever, was like led by the church.
Yeah.
It was a very big thing and well-known thing to go to church and all that sort of stuff. But like it's very different to how we live now. So I think it does change and be influenced a lot with culture, and how that works as well.
Yeah.
We definitely are right.
I don't know. It's not like, look, church is not compulsory. It's not like in the Bible, like, haha.
Thou must go to
Thou
church.
must go to church every week on Sundays and also Saturdays. And if you can make the Wednesday night prayer meeting, that's also really good. No. No. I believe that the relationship with God is much more personal. But, you know, church can provide a great framework and structure for working out your own sort of relationship with God, and for all the reasons that we've talked about.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's good if you go to church because you want to be there, because you want to learn more about God and you want to grow closer to God.
Yeah.
Because that's why we go to church.
And that way you can also get your questions answered.
Yeah, true.
You have
True.
questions about the Bible.
Yeah.
I know a place where you can get answers.
Yeah. That's actually another thing. If anyone's out there that's like, I'm the perfect Christian, I know everything, man, you don't need to go to church. What are you doing here? But for the rest of us, mere mortals, it's good to have some leading and guiding and some sort of direction.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I think that pretty much, well, it doesn't sum the church, it's so much about the church. But I think that's all we've got time for today anyway.
And that's all the time we have for today.
But yeah, as Riley said, if you're looking into finding a church and you're not sure where to start, looking online is a good way to start. Otherwise, feel free to contact us so we can try and find a church your way.
Yeah,
Definitely.
true.
Always glad to help you out finding that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We're fairly familiar with the church sort of scene here in Australia, so we can maybe point you in the right direction.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us this week. It's been great seeing you again. And yeah.
For sure. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to get notified of all of our YouTube uploads.
Oh, yes. It's beautiful. And yes, link is in the description for lots of things. Everything we've talked about, I guess.
Discord,
Instagram.
podcast links.
Podcasts. Instagram.
Our website coming soon.
Minecraft.
That's
And
what I was thinking of.
this and this
Yes.
and this.
And this and this. Yeah. But check out the Minecraft server.
Oh, it's such a good
It is lots of fun. We'll probably be on there. If not, ping us on Discord and we'll try and join.
We'll jump on.
If we're free and there's a ping saying jump on Minecraft, well, I mean, I gotta.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 100%. All right. We will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.